From the Pittsburgh Ledger, PL Media, and The Drop, this is a podcast exploring the accountability murders in Pittsburgh. I'm Teddy Barstow, and we're asking, who is no one? Hi, I'm the Metro editor for the Pittsburgh Ledger. Welcome. You probably recognize me as the other voice on the podcast, the paper boss, the one Julia argues with from time to time. Well, due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm hosting this. Is it hosting if you're the only one talking? Full disclosure, I don't know if it's a fill-in thing. I'm definitely not a special guest host. I might be Julia's replacement. The God's honest truth is that Julia has stepped away from the project, and I'm not sure if or when she is coming back. After everything that's happened, though, I don't blame her. Her worst fears about this audio series became a reality. Last episode, if you remember, Julia named 3 suspects that could potentially be no one. And by Julia, I mean we did. We made her do it. You know, because the podcast is called Who is No One, and we were 5 episodes in and no closer to answering that question than the day we started. She didn't want to do it, but like I said, we made her. And people got hurt.
We have a code 3, all available units. Officer down at Point State Park. Behind cafe at the Point. No description, no further.
We're getting a little ahead of things. Before we dive in proper, a little housekeeping of what you might have missed since our last installment. Controversial FOC News host Alana Paige was in the news herself this week, once again for one of her wildly sensationalized takes. She was joined by newly hired FOC News contributor Kenneth Chbosky. You may remember him from the Chris O'Neill shooting, or from assaulting and almost killing Julia Paige. The fact that the DA declined to pursue charges, well, let's just say that it's given Kenneth quite the boost in profile. Or at least it did. You see, Alana Paige is also Julia Paige's mother. Yes, that Julia, our Julia. And Kenneth's first appearance didn't seem to sit particularly well with Alanna.
Welcome back to The Wall. Reporting from the parapets, I'm Alanna Paige. Our lead tonight, Senator Noah Kemp's controversial proposed legislation, Proposition 87. If passed, Proposition 87 will see Pennsylvania citizens empowered to defend themselves proactively when their lives are threatened, physically and or digitally even, whether by so-called doxing, social media terrorism, or supposed moral crusaders. But now, according to my sources, spineless cowards within Senator Kemp's own party are trying to kill this patriotic legislation, citing the recent violence in Pittsburgh as their excuse for standing in dereliction of duty. Of course, the violence is exactly why Pennsylvania citizens and all American citizens, quite frankly, require this bold legislation. Our freedom, our liberty, hinges on our right to defend ourselves, no matter the perceived cost. As the world changes, and those who would wish us harm gain access to new tools and new methods, our laws must change and adapt. And it would seem the good people of Pennsylvania agree. Our in-house FOC News polling team reports tonight that a clear 56% of the state is in favor of Prop 87. To discuss, we turn to one of the inspirations for Proposition 87 and newly minted FOC News contributor, Kenneth Chbosky. Welcome, Kenneth.
Thank you for having me on The Wall, Alanna. Big fan.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me, aren't you supposed to be in jail, Kenneth?
No. My case was dropped because the district attorney realized he didn't have a case.
Right, okay. So here's my problem, Kenneth. I think you're a bad figurehead for a good movement.
What? No, it's like you said, I was being threatened, and I had to defend my liberty.
Yes, you got into an argument on a video game forum.
It wasn't video games. I was actually talking...
In which case, yes, your life was threatened, so you had a right to defend yourself, but then you assaulted my daughter.
No, I didn't. No. I approached Julia because I knew people would want to hear my story, but she isn't like you. She isn't interested in the truth.
So you attacked her.
What is this? I was offered this position.
That wasn't my choice. But since I have you, I'm going to hold you to account because I think you're deranged And people like you are making it so much harder for Senator Kemp to get this important legislation passed.
Listen, bitch! Sorry, okay? But I'm a goddamn hero who started all this, so you're gonna respect me.
Oh, I promise you, that is never going to happen. I'm not doing this. Get him out of here. He's done.
No, fuck you. Look, you didn't hire me. You can't just kick me off the show.
Not the show, the network. You'll never touch anything FOC or FOC affiliated ever again.
I never thought I would say this, but I agree with her. I hope he's never allowed on TV again. Somehow I doubt we'll be so lucky, though. Now, following the release of former Richard Rowe suspect Aaron Kern, his controversial defense attorney, Roger Dennehy, was doxxed by no one and then found murdered in his home, in the same manner as all of the other accountability killings. 4 shots to the chest. But whether it was Aaron Kern's doing, the work of no one, Copycat 3, or the goddamn Easter Bunny is still not known. Of course, no one did what no one does and followed up the Dennehy killing with his own statement, absolving himself and promising to win the day for whomever.
To the people of Pittsburgh, I respond now to the murder of one Roger Dennehy. I did not wish for Dennehy's death, nor did I cause it, nor will I abide it. In exposing him, my intent was to ensure the premature and unwarranted release of the villain Aaron Kern. But I accept that consequences follow actions, not intent. For this reason, I shall refrain from exposing the details of any individuals until Kern and his copycats are brought to justice. This shall not take long. No one...
I guess that's his way of saying, sorry I got you killed, Mr. Corrupt Lawyer who greased the system to get criminal clients sprung from jail, all in furtherance of their criminal activity. Now, if this were the latest accountability murder, we'd still have plenty to talk about, but the killer or killers were just getting warmed up. On the morning of August 5th, there was another attack. Vince Harmon, an investigator in the Office of Municipal Investigations. If you listened to our last episode, the name should be familiar. 3 weeks after our 5th episode dropped, the first of our 3 no-one suspects was shot. 4 times. The difference, though, was that he shot back.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Off-duty OMI officer returned fire and is down. Code 3. All units to Point State Park. Do we have an ID on the officer?
Not at this time. Suspect wearing a hood. He fled on foot. No further description. We're locking the area down now.
The victim was OMI investigator Vince Harmon, shot twice in the shoulder, once in the arm, and once in the hip. Survived the attack.
But thanks to his bravery and the truly heroic effort of fending off the cowardly shooter, Officer Harmon is still with us. He's in stable condition. Everyone is optimistic right now. No shell casings recovered this time. But Harmon confirmed the weapon was a .38 special revolver, which matches the gun used in previous accountability attacks. So we're looking at one suspect, the person responsible for at least 5 and as many as 7 murders, Richard Rowe.
Chief Mixon, when you say Richard Rowe is your only suspect, are we to take that to mean your department is excluding Aaron Kern?
Aaron Kern is not a suspect at this time.
Chief Mixon, right here. The Office of Municipal Investigation is essentially internal affairs. Cops, police, and cops. Is there any connection between Officer Harmon's work and disgraced Operations Chief Ben Kern, father of Aaron?
Of course there's a connection. They're both part of the fraternal order. Christ, we are not here to litigate Ben Kern's distinguished career, and frankly, I find it disgusting that you would try when one of our own is fighting for his life and there's a killer on the loose.
Surprisingly, Chief Mixon didn't mention, nor was he asked about, the connection between Harmon and this podcast. Well, if we didn't have the outreach to show up on their radar then, what happened next certainly did the trick. A day later, on August 6th, Richard Rowe struck again. Actually, before we get to it, I want to play a snippet of something else first. The conversation I had with Julia while we were recording episode 5. Julia, as you might remember, always insisted that Context was as important as facts. Not spin or opinions. Context. What?
This is stupid, Daddy.
Then don't do the further ado stuff if you think that's too corny.
No, I mean the whole thing, naming suspects. Can we stop for a minute? We shouldn't be doing this. It's wrong.
Okay, I get how you feel, but we've already talked about it.
Daddy, if we do this, if I do this, because let's be real, it's my ass on the hook, then I'm not reporting the news, I'm manufacturing it. We're blurring the lines, and I'm not comfortable with that, not right now. We need more information before we can even begin taking these steps.
I hear you. I do. But we're at 5, and the podcast is called Who Is No One.
I didn't name the fucking thing. This is not what I signed up for.
Okay. If you refuse to do it, tell me right now. Just say the word, and we stop.
Right. And then what?
I don't know. JC finds somebody else. You know what? Wait, stop it. JC, stop recording. Don't have the rest of it, obviously. But the Cliff Notes is that I told her we'd have to answer to the bosses. And I wasn't sure how they'd respond. What? Was kicking her off the series on the table? It might have been. This podcast has gotten the paper a lot of attention. But we never got that far. Somehow I managed to smooth things over and got her to do something she didn't want to do.
We're blurring the lines, and I'm not comfortable with that, not right now.
Now, in the previous episode, JC from PL Media ran a note at the top explaining why everyone decided that our unedited conversation was worth playing for listeners. But as you just heard, that conversation was edited. It was a small edit, a take that didn't start right, but still an edit. When we said there wasn't one. Why am I telling you this? Because we should have before. Context matters.
We're blurring the lines, and I'm not comfortable.
Not comfortable. But she did it anyway. Naming suspects, Vince Harmon, State Senator Kemp's activist brother Donovan Kemp, and the Pittsburgh Ledger's own Alejandro Rios, which was kind of a fuck you to the paper. Did any of us think that our suspects would turn into a hit list? I don't know. But then came August 5th and the Harmon shooting. And a day later, Donovan Kemp was gunned down while jogging, despite eyewitness reports claiming that no one tried to intervene. Too late.
It is with the heaviest of hearts that my family and I can confirm that my little brother Donovan didn't make it. After 6 hours in surgery and the fight of his life, he passed on. Now this Richard Rowe maniac, or whoever the hell he is, tried to kill me. And when that son of a bitch couldn't, he went after my brother. Why? Because his name was brought up in some know-nothing fake news podcast? Feckless vultures. Donovan's blood is on their hands too. Julia Paige, the Pittsburgh Ledger. How do you live with yourselves? He wasn't part of this. He wasn't no one. You did this!
Yeah, so that happened. And a mortified Julia quit. A day later, Rowe went after Alejandro Rios, but this time, no one was there, and he was successful in fighting off the attacker. Was no one laying in wait, using Alejandro as bait to catch this current iteration of Richard Rowe? The timing certainly leaves that open to debate. But what we do know is that Alejandro was unharmed, and the attacker got away. There has been further speculation that no one was shot in the process, but Alejandro flat out denies this.
It was fast, but, I didn't see anything like that. Gunshots, a fight, then Rowe fled.
There were no indications of injury?
No. No blood, nothing. If he was hit, he was wearing armor, or maybe he's bulletproof, what the hell do I know?
Did you talk to no one?
I did. Told him thanks.
If you recall, last month we mentioned that Alejandro was put on administrative leave pending an investigation into his connection to no one. The Ledger has since reinstated Alejandro and apologized, as have I. Yeah, we conjured 3 suspects with little more than speculation and semi-educated guessing, and all 3 became victims of violence at the hands of a madman. Why? Because we called this Who is No One? Who is he? That's complicated, isn't it? On one hand, he's the guy who doxed the original victims and set things into motion that he can't control. Chaos, murder, and a climate of helplessness and fear that has people actually considering voting for preemptive self-defense laws. Legalized murder, as Julia calls it. Anyway, there's plenty of room for debate with no one. But who is he? As far as I'm concerned, he's the guy that saved my coworker, my friend, Alejandro, from our bullshit. My bullshit. Here's the part where I'm supposed to talk about the 3 attacks and speculate why Richard Rowe targeted 3 random names in our Know Nothing podcast. Is he trying to pay no one back for capturing Aaron Kern and then doubling down that he is Richard Rowe? Is he pissed at no one for saving Ben Kern and others? What's his angle? Maybe Rowe, or the copycat, if you still think Aaron Kern is the original. I do. Maybe the copycat is an egomaniacal asshole who's punishing us here at the podcast for not focusing on him. I don't know why the fuck he did it, or where I'm even going with this. You guys know as much as I do. When we outline these episodes, we try to have a thesis statement we want to explore, something meaty, with gravitas, a conversation starter to latch onto as we go down these confusing, heartbreaking, and often truly horrifying roads. But this episode isn't that. No catchy turn of phrase to tie things up in a neat little bow. This episode is called Blurred Lines, because that's what we did. Julia's words. She warned us, and I didn't support her professional integrity. I didn't protect her. I blurred the lines between reporting and becoming part of the story. I did that. Why? Because I journalistically believed it was the right thing to do? No. It was a mandate from above. And I don't care if this opens us up to legal liability. That's why it happened. And it's not on Julia Paige. Julia, I'm sorry for what I did and that this happened, but it's not on you. It's not. You did your job as you were told to do. You did nothing wrong. What happened is not on you. It's my fault, and I'm going to have to live with it. That's a wrap for episode 6. Fuck if I know what's going to happen now or how much of this will air, but if I'm allowed, I'll be here next month, hopefully with Julia, but without, if need be, because you all deserve answers, and the endeavor is still worthwhile, which I believe it is, if done the right way. Because it feels like such a cop-out if we pack up shop and end like this. We can't undo the harm, but maybe we can add something meaningful to the conversation, something we sorely need without mandates or agendas. Context. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you next month. Until then, stay safe, Pittsburgh.
To read more about No One, head to blackmarket.la. Who is No One is produced in partnership with Black Market Narrative and ZQ Entertainment.
Black Market Narrative.